fascinating talk radio.
When you think of it, it doesn't take a lot of brains to be a socialist. All it requires is the desire to have something that doesn't belong to you and the absence of character to justify the use of force to get it on your behalf. But for freedom, you have to stand up and say, look, even though I might have to work a little harder myself, even though I might have to sacrifice something at the moment and wait for it later, that's a better way to do it than to try to grab it through government from other people's pockets now. Freedom requires character. Socialism does not.
Boy, those are true words. 6:36:24 before the hour. That is Lawrence Reed. He is the head of FEE, the Foundation for Economic Education, and he is one of the leading lights promoting liberty in this country today. And on the line with us is another fellow who I consider one of the leading lights in the Liberty Crusade, and that is Lew Rockwell of the Mises Institute. Lew, welcome back to the program.
Mark, great to be with you.
Isn't that neat to hear Larry say that so succinctly?
Oh, Larry's wonderful.
Yeah, he just really nails it. Just because I found that people that are socialist aren't necessarily very bright.
Well, some of them have been smart, unfortunately. Karl Marx was a smart guy. Lenin was a smart guy. Hitler was a smart guy, for that matter. But you need more. You need more than intelligence. As he said, you need character.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's what they lack is the character. They might have the actual smarts, but they lack the character.
Well, they also the trouble is when people go into government, with very few exceptions, as Ron Paul, a few other people, they have typically either have beforehand or develop in there a power lust. They want to run other people's lives, and they actually enjoy it. I mean, most of us are happy just to try to struggle in our own lives, mow our own lawn, take care of our own kids, paint our own house. We're not actually interested in running people in the next house or the next town or let alone the next country. Mm-hmm. But there are people who are. They go into government.
Is that why the worst get to the top?
Well, that's right. Of course, you're quoting F.A. Hayek's comment, and he said, yeah, that's right, because in the private sector, and of course we're talking about tendencies here, not absolutes, but in the private world, it tends to be the people who are the best at serving other people's needs. The business people who can give us what we want at the price we want to pay, those are the people who prosper. Mm-hmm. By being a lying demagogue, a backstabber, and so forth, doesn't help you typically sell more widgets. On the other hand, in the government, it absolutely is demagoguery, lying, conniving.
You get to
all
be
the bad characteristics that get you ahead.
That's
so
right.
That's why these are not good American presidents, for example, don't tend to be good guys.
Yeah. And you describe all those various unfortunate tendencies of people in politics, and those very attributes that you talked about are the ones that land you positions like Speaker of the House, Senate Majority Leader, or you get to lead committees.
Well, of course, that's exactly right.
Well, just before you came on, I was telling folks about Representative Peter Welch, a Democrat from Vermont, who's going to introduce legislation this week that would impose a 50% tax on what he calls excessive bonuses at firms that receive bailout funds. He calls it the Wall Street Bonus Act. And get this, if you worked on Wall Street, your company took money from the government, and it was over $50,000. Your bonus is over $50,000. He wants to take 50% of it.
Well, I'd like to see a 50% tax on congressional salaries. That would be my. But of course, unfortunately, he's tapping into something that's actually real. I mean, there is envy. There is the desire to knock down people who are above you financially or otherwise. It's one of the worst human traits, envy, and really the emotional engine of socialism and fascism and welfare statism and all these kinds of very unfortunate political movements. But, those companies should not have been bailed out. So the answer is not to, penalize the individual executives. The answer was, feds, don't bail them out. Let them go bankrupt. And in fact, that's the only thing that will help clear the wreckage of what Greenspan and Bernanke did in creating the bubble. You have to, it's like in an old sailing ship. If they were in a terrible storm and a mast was down, they had to cut the rigging, get rid of it, because otherwise it could drag the ship under. Well, that's the same with the economy. And you had all this economic wreckage thanks to the Fed. You have to get rid of it. So you have to have bankruptcies. If these companies didn't go bankrupt, well, more power to them. But to tax the average guy in Monterey and send his money to wealthy people in Wall Street, we all understand there's something wrong with that. So it's wrong to steal in any sense. So, Welch's bill is wrong, but he taps into something that's actually real and legitimate, unfortunately.
Yeah. The other thing, and I mentioned this, was I think that one of the lessons that Wall Street will learn from this episode is that even when you pay your bill, you take money from the government and then you pay your debt, it's like doing business with the mafia. They will always own you. And maybe they're learning this lesson. The next time they'll be a little smarter.
Well, of course, that's exactly right. And I'm told that sometimes the Treasury actually told companies that either you take this money or we're going to kill you. Exactly like the mafia. They didn't actually threaten to kill them, but they threatened to wreck them, to destroy them. Geithner and the rest of these birds. So it's a very complicated situation. It's tough to figure out who the villains and the good guys are. But one thing we can know for sure, don't bail them out. If a company is failing, it should fail, because if a company is failing and is about to go bankrupt, it means it's consuming wealth. General Motors consumes wealth. Every car it makes costs money more than it can sell it for. Well, that's a market signal to stop what you're doing. But rather than, of course, the government loses money on everything it does, right? I mean, there's no such thing as a profit in the government. So they keep General Motors in existence, sucking wealth out of the rest of the country in order to keep the UAW and all their executives, and also to empower the government. Now the government's got car companies, just like the French government with Renault and whatever, the Citroën. So now the U.S. owns Chrysler and GM. Doesn't that make us, Obama a great guy? Well, of course, or Bush for that matter, since this all began with Bush. And of course, it doesn't. It just makes them more of a creep.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible? I'm just wondering about the chances for liberty in our lifetime. If we are going to see a rollback of any of this, is that possible, Lou? Or are we going to be in a situation where from here on out, the government will own these car companies forever and ever till they stop making cars?
Well, I'm optimistic, although for a pessimistic reason. If we have to depend on Obama, that's an actual mistake, by the way. I'm not making a joke there. Okay. If we have to depend on Obama to change his mind, or George Bush, or Geithner, or Paulson, or Representative Welch, or Pelosi, or the rest of these people, of course they're never going to change their minds and give up power. They live for power. They love power. That's why they're in government. However, the government is bankrupting itself. What they're doing with these deficits, what they're doing with these wars, they're about to start even more wars in Yemen and Sudan and maybe Iran or whatever, kill more people over there at vast cost to the Americans. The government is bankrupting itself. So, of course, it does a lot of damage to us at the same time. That's the pessimistic side. But the government is going to have to get smaller. So that's good for us. It's good for everybody in the world, as a matter of fact.
All right. 6:44 is our time. Lou, I want you to hang on because I've got to share with you information about a citizens' effort here in California to try and maybe change the rules of the game or level the playing field. Want to get your thoughts on it. And we'll do that right after this break. 6:44, 16 before the hour. Lew Rockwell is our guest. LewRockwell.com is his website. Also, Mises.org, the Mises Institute in Auburn, Alabama, one of the great free market think tanks in America. We'll be back with Lew Rockwell right after these words on 1460 KION.
One 800-457-6402.
Well, all of this is because there's a difference between a private owner and the government. A private owner realizes that if he doesn't maintain his property, it depreciates and deteriorates, which affects his own stream of income and its resale value later down the road. A government owns this, and it has a lot of other motives to spend the money today, redirect the money today, and let some other politician worry about it 5 years from now.
647 on 1460 KION. We're visiting with Lew Rockwell from LewRockwell.com. Lew, did you recognize that last voice?
It was very familiar, but no, I did not.
Rich Ebeling.
Hey, Richard Ebeling is another great guy.
Yeah, I love getting all these free market guys on here because I truly believe that we have the opportunity to not only entertain but also inform and educate people. And what I love is when we meet our listeners at events, and they say that not only do you keep us entertained, but we learn a lot about why the world is the way it is. So that's what makes this.
Well, you're providing a great service. There's no question about it.
So, Lew, here in California, there is a Tea Party organization, a statewide Tea Party organization that has put together a petition, an initiative called Unplug the Political Machine, right? And what this would do, this initiative, if it qualifies for the ballot, the voters can decide in November to stop public employees' unions from mandatorily, by force, deducting contributions from the employees' paychecks. In other words, it would be an opt-in program instead of an opt-out program. And the unions are absolutely out of their minds about this. I had a chance.
They are.
Oh God, I had a chance to talk with Mark Meckler, who's part of the group that organized this initiative. And what he told me was that the day this thing was qualified, and this is just a complete and total grassroots effort, the day it qualified through the Secretary of State's office, he started receiving calls from organized labor in California, right? And one of the contributors to the campaign is a businessman in Los Angeles, and he was visited by a rather famous or notorious former state legislator who said to him, "You realize you're going to start a nuclear war in California, up in Sacramento." And he said, "If you continue to support this, we are going to put together," and this guy was, say, I'm here on behalf of organized labor, essentially said, "We're going to put together initiatives that we will get on the ballot and get passed that will effectively put your industry out of business in California." This is how these people work, Lew.
Wow.
Well,
they're all used to living very well off the taxpayers. The average California employee earns far more and certainly has a far fancier pension and medical plan and everything than the poor schnook who's paying the taxes. But we know that cops and firemen and prison guards can make more than $100,000, sometimes even $150,000 a year, and then some of these state employees get $250,000 a year pensions. They're having a very nice time. And one of the ways they're able to do that is because they're able to get raised this vast amounts of money through what you're talking about in order to buy state legislatures.
Well,
so no wonder they're upset.
Oh yeah, well look at it this way: the California Teachers Association, the CTA, which is the largest teachers union in the country, has 300,000 members. From their dues, they generate $100 million a year.
Unbelievable.
In political action money. Now, last year in Idaho, this same type of initiative was put into effect. What it ended up doing, and it shows that the union membership doesn't necessarily like giving the money to the union leadership.
No.
The equivalent union in Idaho, their contributions went to 15% of what they'd been the year before.
Well,
so then we'd be talking...
If, as they would claim, and they do claim, that their own members want this, how about trying voluntarism, right? I mean, collect the money voluntarily. Don't force it. But, unions have their power because of the force of government. So they love force, and this is, again, something to always keep in mind about government. It's a gun. It's a gun pointed at your head. Even if you don't pay your parking ticket, they claim the right to kill you if you sufficiently resist it.
Right.
If you look at anything you sign from the government, you're swearing, your children's lives and so forth, to if they feel that you're not telling them the truth. And you may be telling them the truth is what they claim about you. So this is a very nasty organization, and so this would be great to cut down on these. Of course, the teachers make vast amounts of money. Teachers make, despite the propaganda about, the poor, underpaid teachers are in California and the rest of the states, but especially California, are paid vastly more than the average parent of a school child.
Yeah.
So we need to cut them down to size. Cut them down.
Once they get into about 10 years, they're doing very well. The ones right out of college, they don't make a lot. But
of course, that's part of the propaganda, right? So they can say, "No, how dare you say that we're well paid?" And they look at the first year kids. But yes, also they have tenure; they can't be fired.
Right. And you know what? There's good and bad with tenure because, for example, we know of people who teach in organizations in universities that have political views that are quite to the other side of the prevailing Marxist, doctrine. And without tenure, someone like your friend Tom DiLorenzo at Loyola, Maryland, he'd be out of a job. He wouldn't be able to get a job in academia for the most part.
Well, I'm not at all opposed to tenure for private organizations where that's all agreed to. Mm-hmm. But for the government, so somebody should be able to permanently be ripping off the people of California. You can't get rid of them no matter what. No, that's not. That's a very different kind of thing. But I agree with you. I'm glad Tom DiLorenzo has tenure, but that's a private arrangement. It's not at the expense of the taxpayers.
Good point. 6:53. You want to take a call here real quick?
Sure.
Okay, let's go to the phones. Good morning, caller. You're on with Lew Rockwell on KION.
Yeah, this is Elkhorn.
Hey, Elkhorn, go ahead.
I can't remember which one of our founding fathers expounded on this, but this was thought up, way back when. There in the 5,000-year leap, there's a quote about the fact that they expounded on the fact that public employees should not get lucrative jobs. The salary should be low. And in fact, you should not take money for public service if you can afford not to. It was discussed thoroughly.
Hmm. And you don't recall who made that comment?
It's in the 5,000-year leap, though.
Okay. All right.
I don't know whether it's, but it was one of our major founding fathers expounded on that.
Could have been Madison or Jefferson. Thank you very much for the call, Chuck. Yeah. Well, we have oftentimes, Lou, disregarded the advice of the founders, but I think that we're finding out that those guys were pretty wise as we look around to the carnage that our economy is in and our country is in today, caused by our current crop of politicians.
Yeah, we're now realizing that there's a price to be paid for ignoring the truth.
Great point. All right, Lou, I want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Lew Rockwell has been our guest. His website, LewRockwell.com. Also, the Mises Institute. You'll also find his work there and many other great scholars at Mises, MISES.org. Lou, have a great weekend, and thanks again for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Mark.
6:55, it's KION.
3D TV is coming, but does anybody really want it? I'm Digital Pro Kim Commando. More coming up.
The reviews are in. Kim's Club is a winner. Richard, Attleboro, Massachusetts.
I have problems with